What's up, everybody? This is Nick from Tenacity.ai with my co-host Jason, and you're listening to the Cloud Cost Optimization Podcast. This week, we're going to talk about a recent article in Forbes talking about how to embrace cloud services without breaking the bank. Good article. We'll link it in the show notes. Definitely take a read of it. I think it does a good job of kind of framing up some of the problems with cloud services and the sorts of challenges that can come with it. So just want to touch on framing up this article. The challenges around as the article outlines wasteful spending and trying to get your arms around it, and what are some of the tactics that you can do. So Jason and I are here to discuss some of our experiences with these tactics and what kind of outcomes you can expect. So Jason, step one in the article, trying to get your arms around wasteful spending. How do you? Step one is to gain accurate visibility of cloud spend via this as sophisticated technology. But I think kind of the start of it, gain accurate visibility is important. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know why sophisticated technology was added into it, but I mean, sure, yeah. Would you want to do it with unsophisticated technology?
I want to do it with easy to use technology, honestly.
Yeah, right. All right. Anyway, knowing what you have and why you have it is the first step, which does need some context about the business, right? Because if I don't have these things organized in a way that tells me what business unit they're owned by or what customer, whatever you need to segment your organization out by and whatever type of unit, then it's really going to be hard to understand why you have it, especially in larger environments. This is an easy problem if I have 10 EC2 instances, but a much larger problem when I have hundreds of them with hundreds of Lambda functions and all these things. So understanding what you have, first step. Next step is, why do I have all this stuff? And that is the right first step to make any decisions in the future about where you can save, stop spending, do commitments, and all those things.
I think there's a great line in here. It says, allow each stakeholder a precise view of resource utilization. That's so key, because you're getting into accountability. And part of the problem with managing cloud spending is, knowing where that spend is actually aligned so you can make the right decisions. Is it something that needs to go away, or is it something that's actually going to amplify and accelerate and grow over time, and we need to optimize it, whether it's from optimizing our discount programs or whether it's optimizing from a refactoring perspective. That's really important, is giving stakeholders that precise view. I like that phrase there. So step two. Yeah, step two in the article is establish lanes for each department and employee. Jason, what are your thoughts here?
I don't really know what that means. You have a far better context on lanes, but I get the sense that, this would be nice, but is it achieved? It just seems to me like, this seems to me like, okay, this makes sense, step number two, but it also seems to me like this might not even be something that's very achievable. I mean, it seems very altruistic in a way to me, like to establish these lanes and then get everyone to adhere to these lanes. I think those lanes would need to be guardrails, not just dotted white or even solid yellow stripes, right?
Yeah, I get what the author's going for here. I'll just say from a high level perspective, in general, having sat in an engineer's shoes, having sat in an architect's shoes, written software, et cetera, all the way through leading organizations as a technology leader and as a CEO, the idea that I agree, you don't want someone in finance making cost-based decisions that impact your ability to deliver the product. In the same respect, you don't want, I get it, you don't want engineers negotiating big contracts. But part of the reality of, a fast-moving organization and needing context in some really sophisticated, what's the right word? Sophisticated organizations, or organizations that are not so cut and dried as they're siloed into specific areas. There's a lot of cross functionality inside of organizations. There's a lot of intelligence that's absolutely necessary. Having an engineer at the negotiating table when the finance person is talking is one of the most powerful things I've ever seen inside of organizations I've been in. The person who knows everything about the technology shaking their head at the person, negotiating a point in what they're going to try and what the other side is trying to trade for is really important, because it's that moment when the finance, we had a great CFO we worked with who just was stellar at this, but who would say, excuse me, we're going to be gone a couple minutes, mute the phone, and now there's a conversation that happens, and you would get the right things by having all those people in the room together. And so I get kind of this concept of creating lanes. I think it's kind of an ideal that it's really nice and it's logical and it works on paper, but you get to kind of the messy reality of working inside of organizations, and it's much more fluid. And sometimes it is engineers making decisions about what's necessary from a vendor, what's necessary in a contract. And you do have sometimes finance people who are saying, we can no longer spend this kind of money on this thing. You have to find another way. And it drives refactoring efforts, drives efforts to think about technologies a little bit differently. And so in principle, I agree with step 2, but I do think that we all, and the listeners probably are feeling this as well, that there is a reality to how things work inside of an organization. It's much messier than kind of the cleanliness of having lanes.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's far more complicated to deliver this than what it is. And I also think, the best way to do it is empowering employees, making them feel comfortable. I mean, this is all about communication, right? Communicating. What better way to do that than to get them involved in those meetings? So feel comfortable sharing, being critical of things like that. I mean, most oftentimes these things it's hard to establish these things because there's a lack of trust across a lot of different departments. And we've talked about this before with IT being viewed as a cost center and things like that, right? And so the way your organization treats their IT costs, IT department, the people that are in it, will have a huge impact on making sure that those communication lines stay open without needing something as formal as lanes, which to me it seems to me like a better way to say guardrails, which is what people don't want to hear, right? You don't want to hinder progress. You want to empower, and then have something that makes sure, because we're all humans, right? And once I have tens of thousands of things I need to manage, you need to have something help you make sure that the things that you're doing are optimized, coming back behind your employees who really there are very few employees I've met in my life, Nick, that didn't want to do the right thing.
That's exactly right. I couldn't name one for you that wasn't trying to do the right thing. So I agree with you there. And I think, guardrails, it's a term that you hit on. I'll just comment on this. People, their hackles rise at this term, but we've been using guardrails forever. Since the earliest days of me being a developer, we had guardrails, right? We had a pipeline for pushing code to production. We didn't just we did just log into production way back in the day and make changes, and everything blew up, which is why we put guardrails on what our delivery chain is. So anybody who's dropped a live.
I wonder if people had a bad taste in their mouth when they implemented the original guardrails, which was like to protect people from running off the side. You think there was people protesting this, all around, we won't want guardrails on the side of the road to prevent us from falling off cliffs. I wonder if there was this bad connotation around, because you're right. They've been around forever.
I don't know if 80s television is any indicator. I should see a lot more cars driving off of cliffs and exploding midair, but we got all these guardrails to prevent that. So, all right, let's move on to step 3, the final step in the article. Provide FinOps education to get employees to speak the same language. Jason.
Why? I mean, I don't know. Do you want your CFOs speaking technology language? I think this is more the opposite way. This is more making your IT people adopt financial language than making finance people adopt IT language. So, I think it's if you have open lines of communication, right, and employees feel comfortable having conversations with their superiors or with other people that are open and honest, uh, we typically get to an understanding with another human being based on explanation, right? And so I just think it's really hard to come up with a dictionary that people have to use. It is very easy to say, okay, we're going to refer to this as X, right? And we've done this many times internally. We're not referring to it as that because that name doesn't make any sense to refer to that as. But I think in general, again, open lines of communication, kind of like an open door policy where people feel comfortable, then they're going to take extra time to explain whatever it is that you're having trouble understanding or communicating with, right? Yes, we want our employees to speak the same language, but I think it's one of those things that's, kind of a pie in the sky thing, and really just open and honest and credibility within the organization between employees, managers, super, whatever is a key.
I'm going to restate that a different way, in a way that I think you and I have both experienced. But first, I want to make a point because I think it'll drive it home. So the training people to speak the same language is something that cybersecurity has been trying for 20 years. And it's largely failed. And that's actually, when I read this, I agree with everything the author's saying. Like, we got to get people communicating. Like, we need this cross communication in order to create better understanding. But also, having been in highly secure, highly compliant environments for my entire career, I have watched cybersecurity folks bang their head against the wall trying to get everyone in an organization to understand, by way of example, what phishing is and why not to click on a link in an email, and people still do it. And so the idea that you're going to train everybody,
yes, they do.
The idea that you're kind of going to train everybody to sort of speak the same language it's a really lofty goal. It's really, really hard. And I applaud those who want to bring financial education across any spectrum or any body of people, absolutely inside of organizations, train the employees why what they do is important financially to the organization. And you will get them, again, they want to do the right thing. They want to do the good thing. They're going to try and do that. But it's actually very, very hard to get people to train them to speak that same language. I think it's more important, and you and I have experience. This is the point I wanted to drive home that you just made. It's about kind of culturally having an environment that's inquisitive, that allows a very smart engineer to ask a really dumb financial question and allows a really smart CFO to ask a really dumb technical question. And it's good. Like, that's promoted. There's no
to feel comfortable.
Right. To not be spoken down.
How often do you say to me, this is going to be a really dumb question, Jason? And I go, there's no question this dumb. And oftentimes I have the answer, but I go, maybe I should just confirm that, because maybe I can't remember why I know this thing, and I want to make sure that I'm right and I don't miss. Memory's fallible, right? By the way, memory is fallible. The longer things go, the more that's hard to do. So I completely agree with you that it's all about open, honest communication and making sure that people feel like they can come to you.
Yeah. You want those people communicating. You want your highly technical, really smart people communicating with your highly literate, financial, really smart executive people, and making decisions together where nobody feels talked down to. Nobody feels like they can't say something or ask a certain question because they'll be seen as not smart enough or something to that effect. You want to create that environment. So that's, I think, the right approach here. Absolutely keep training people, try to get them to speak the same language. But if cybersecurity is any indicator, that is a really hard road to go down, and it's an uphill battle. All right, Jason, any parting thoughts?
None.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. That's it for our show today. We'll post the article in the show notes. I definitely recommend everybody take a read of it, but stay tuned next time for more cloud cost optimization.